So today is the day that the NAR settlement goes into effect. It's August the 17th, 2024. And if you haven't heard, there was a big class action lawsuit that happened or at least settled earlier this year, 2024. But it's been going on for actually quite a while. But it finally all came to a head and everything got settled. Tens of millions of dollars that the NAR is having to pay, RE/MAX is having to pay, the parent company of like Coldwell Banker or something like that, I forget. There were probably like 4 big entities that got tagged with several $100 million worth of fines and fees that they had to pay. And what ended up happening was that this class action lawsuit happened in like northern Missouri, if I recall. And they alleged that the industry as a whole has been price fixing the collection and sharing of commissions for decades now, costing home sellers and home buyers billions of dollars in fees that they otherwise would not have paid or had to have paid. And I have to admit that as I started digging into the case, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not like sitting here poring over all these financials and paperwork and all that kind of stuff. But I did hear some of the case. I talked to lawyers about it. And I have to admit that I ultimately found myself agreeing or siding with the plaintiffs. I think that they had some legitimate grievances. What I heard was just some awful, awful stuff. So to not bore you with like all of the details of inside baseball about how real estate works, I think maybe it would be helpful for me to just briefly articulate for you how real estate agency works, at least in the state of Texas, because that's where I am. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, and so our license has to comply with the Texas Real Estate Commission. They are the governmental entity that oversees all of our licensing. Now, that's TREC, what we call TREC. Not to be confused with the National Association of Realtors. So all realtors are real estate agents. Not all real estate agents are members of the National Association of Realtors. So we're not talking about TREC. We're talking about the National Association of Realtors. That is a trade organization mostly comprised of residential real estate agents, and that is the entity that got tagged up pretty good in this settlement. So TREC says, per the Real Estate License Act, that if a real estate agent represents you as the seller, it is the real estate agent's duty to look out for the seller's best interest, which assumes that we're here to help you sell your property in a timely manner at the highest price possible and at the best terms. Now, generally what happens is when you list your property with a residential realtor, you're paying them some sort of fee. And the way that the industry has gone for decades now is out of that fee, that listing broker is generally sharing their fee with another broker should they happen to bring a buyer. Now, just so you know, these fees have never been set. Even though there might be something that's standard and typical, they have never been set by law. The trade organization does not set these fees. These are completely and 100% negotiable between the listing broker and the seller. Also, at least again, I'm just speaking for the state of Texas. I don't know how it's been in Missouri, which is where this whole thing came about. So at least in Texas, the forms that we've been using that have been promulgated by the Texas Association of Realtors have always been negotiable. What the overall fee is and what the fee is, should there be any at all, that you're offering to a buyer's broker. And the seller at the bottom signs off on all of this. And fees have always been negotiable. In fact, it's one of the big things that we ultimately end up having to negotiate quite a bit whenever we are taking on a new seller client. And so there's a couple of big things that are changing now. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about what the Texas Real Estate Commission says about working with a buyer is that if you are a buyer and you are using a real estate agent to show you properties or have them negotiate a contract for you, then you should enter into a formal written representation agreement with that buyer broker. Or else, if you don't, then de facto, that agent technically represents the seller as what's called a sub-agent. Now, if you want to see how this actually works and see it in writing for yourself, it's a one-page document that every real estate broker is supposed to give to you upon the first substantive meeting that you have with them. It's called the Information About Brokerage Services. It's one page. You can read it for yourself. In fact, you can find it on my website, you can find it on my email, you can find it anywhere. And there you will find, if you are working as a buyer's broker, you should have a formal representation agreement, and if not, then it just so happens that that person technically represents the seller. Now, I don't know about you, but if you are working with an agent to help you buy a home, I'm sure that you don't really want them representing the seller's best interest. You probably want them representing your best interest as a buyer, which means you want them to fight to get you the best deal. You want them to fight to get you the best terms. You want them to fight to get you out of that deal if you don't want it anymore. I'm sure that that's exactly what it is that you want when you work with a buyer broker. So if you've ever signed a buyer's representation agreement, even before today, it's been this way as long as I've been a real estate broker in the state of Texas, which is now 17 years. I've been licensed since 2007. And every single time I've ever used the buyer representation agreement contract, it always says in there what my fee is, how it's earned and payable, and it also says that you as the buyer actually owe that fee if nobody else will pay it. So the way that the contract basically reads is you owe us X percent or X amount of dollars or whatever the fee is that we negotiate, and that I, as your buyer's broker, I'm going to go first seek to earn that fee and have it paid for by the seller, the seller's broker, somebody else. And if I can't get the fee paid for by any of those people, then the buyer is going to be responsible for whatever the deficiency is in the fee. Now, that's always been the case. So this whole settlement thing that's going on today, starting today, August 17th, 2024, that doesn't change that at all. What really changes that's supposed to be helping consumers right now, and I'm very skeptical that this is going to help consumers, is that now brokers are not going to clearly be able to see what is the fee that is offered. Why is that important? Well, the reason why that's important is because the way that the industry has gone for a long time is buyer brokers have been mostly unwilling to have these discussions with people who want to go buy a house because they've always just been able to go look up 123 Main Street that you might want to look at, and the commission is like right there on the MLS. So let's just say the commission is 10% of the sales price. And you, as the buyer, call me up and say, hey, Scott, I was just trolling around on Zillow. I know you're an agent. I saw this house on 123 Main Street. I'd like to go take a look at it. I'm interested in buying a home right now. When can we go see it? And I say, whoop-de-doo. Let's go see 123 Main Street. I'm available tomorrow. When can we go? And the first thing that we would do is we would go to the MLS. We as an industry, we go to the MLS and we see 123 Main Street. Okay, it's still available. What are they offering? Oh, look at that. 123 Main Street's offering a 10% commission. Now, what if they were offering like 1 or 2 or 0 or 0.01%? Now, all of a sudden, the broker's got a decision to make. Hey, am I gonna go help this person buy this home for free, or less than what I think I'm worth, or less than what the industry standard is, or something like that, or whatever? Now, all of a sudden, I'm gonna have to have an uncomfortable conversation with you because you called me up and said, hey, I see 123 Main Street, I wanna go buy it. And now I'm gonna have to say, hey, great, I'd love to help you, but I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but the seller or the seller's agent is not offering me a commission. And now I have to have this real awkward and uncomfortable conversation for most agents that says, hey, if you want me to help you buy 123 Main Street, are you willing to pay my commission? And so that's how it's gone for a long time. And we just got into a habit as an industry that we weren't willing to have these conversations because everybody just kept offering a certain amount generally. Now, it's never always been 100% a certain fee. It's varied as long as I can know. I know, look, let's just get it out there. A lot of people think, hey, real estate commissions are 3% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the seller's agent. But that's not always the case. I've seen so many times, 2.5%, 2.25%, 2%, 1%, 0.01%, literally seen that. I've even seen not a percentage. I've seen just a straight dollar amount. And this was all clearly in the MLS. Now, what the plaintiffs said, and they were right to the most part, is that agents routinely would not go show houses that were not offering a certain commission or above. In fact, there was a big no-no that the MLSs have now taken out where you could actually go search for homes that were only offering a certain amount or more. Now, personally, I have never done that because I always have a representation agreement with my clients that clearly articulates what my fee is going to be. So that actually gives me the freedom as a broker who's willing to have tough conversations with their clients about fees. It gives me the freedom to go show you any house from anywhere because I don't have to worry about whether the seller is offering a commission or not. I've already negotiated with that as the buyer. Now, that is going into effect 100%, and I think that that's pretty good. The downside to this is that now, in an attempt to make everything more transparent, it's actually becoming not transparent. Can I tell you why? Now that it is not clear in the MLS, we're gonna have to go outside of the MLS, maybe to their website if they update it, or we're gonna have to get on the phone or get an email back from a real estate agent. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever called a real estate agent or emailed a real estate agent or texted a real estate agent and never heard back from them? Boy, I have. And actually the most frustrating part of this business is actually dealing with other real estate agents. And so it's really going to make the job a whole lot tougher. And it's actually confusing buyers on top of that. So this is some of the new rules, and I want you to be cognizant that this stuff is going to start happening. So if you've bought a home before and you go, hey, no real estate agent has ever asked me to sign anything, they just hop up and start showing me properties. If that's happening now, that is a huge red flag that you should run the other way, because if your real estate agent in the midst of all of this settlement talk is not willing to have these conversations now that it's all cards are on the table and this is what everybody's got to do, what else are they not talking to you about? What else are they not telling you about? What kind of information are they getting that could compromise their commission that they're hoping to earn off of the back of you buying the home that you really want, that they're just going to kind of not tell you because it might make you not want to buy that house? I would run the other way if you're going to be talking with any real estate agent that is not willing to tell you the facts. So here are the facts. Here are the rules. Number one, in order to go tour properties with any real estate agent, you are now going to, or not you don't have to do this, the real estate agents, should they be a member of the National Association of Realtors, which I already said 99.9% of us are that deal in residential real estate. If they are going to work with you to go show you houses, they're going to have a signed representation agreement with you in order to be able to even go step foot in one single house. Stupid, I know, but that's how it works. Number two, all commissions are going to first have to be negotiated between the buyer and the real estate broker, and then it's all going to have to be negotiated between the seller and the seller's agent and the seller's agent and the buyer broker. All of this kind of stuff is going to be all negotiated, and it always has been, but now it's just going to be totally above board, completely conspicuous. There's going to be a lot of paperwork that everybody's going to have to sign. Another thing, whatever your buyer broker agreement says, if the seller or the seller's agent is offering more than that to try to entice a sale, your broker's not going to be able to keep any of that as a bonus. So just for example, if the seller, or let's say if the buyer and the buyer's broker have an agreement for 3% of the sales price, and the seller is really trying to entice some agent to bring a buyer by, and they're, say, offering 3% of the sales price plus a $5,000 bonus, your buyer's broker is not going to be able to keep that additional. They're going to have to either give it back to the seller or maybe somehow write it into the contract so that the buyer can keep it. But the buyer's broker is not now allowed to earn any more than what their agreement says. Let's see, what else? As I told you, like really probably no skin off of your back, but it is going to make it a lot more difficult for the buyer's agent to know what's going on. And it's not very transparent, as I said, because now we just have to go pick up the phone, make a lot more phone calls to agents who are probably not going to give us a call back. Very tough, very stupid. It's how the industry works. But this is what's going on. It's August 17th, 2024. This is what's happening now. So a couple of things for you to look out for. If your agent, or if an agent is showing you properties, like meeting you at a house, opening up the door, walking in and saying, ooh, look at this house. Hey, I think it's worth X. Ooh, did you see that over there? They are violating, number one, the seller's trust because they're technically a sub-agent. And number two, they're violating the terms of this settlement. So long-winded, man, I've been talking for a long time. Hopefully I'm not talking in circles. Hopefully I have given you at least a little bit of information about what's going on today and why it's so important that you really get with a good real estate agent. If you want to talk more about this, talk the details or argue with me or whatever, feel free to give me a call. My number is all over the internet. You can find me pretty easy, or just DM me here, DM me on my socials, email me, yada, yada, yada. I am around and I'd love to help you out. So thanks. Happy selling.